I actually wanted to ask you about the Whoopi Goldberg thing, because to me, it struck me as a really interesting case of conflicting frameworks, right? So, for the three people who don't know what happened, Whoopi Goldberg made some comments about the Holocaust, and basically what she said was that what was going on between Germans and the Jewish people wasn't about race, because from her point of view, those are all white people. So it can't be, white on white crime, so to speak, isn't racism, right? You can't be racist against your own race. And that's how she was conceiving of it. And of course, we know that the Jews were considered an inferior race of people by the Germans. And that was, at the very least, a justification for their behavior, or for their animus, right? At least an ostensible justification for it, right? That's at least what they said, whether they believed it or not. And that kind of speaks to the issue, right? Because I can totally see Whoopi Goldberg's perspective. I can understand the math she's doing, right? From her context, she's looking at a bunch of people who to her all look white. And so the conflict between them cannot be put into the race framework that she understands from her kind of, growing up here in America context of like, it has to be between people who don't look the same. Right. I'm curious, what do you think about that whole kind of conflict of frameworks? Because people got very upset, and the criticism is fine, I think, but it's a little strange because it seemed like people couldn't even understand why she would think that way.
Yeah, so part of my research too, and my effort to really, and I mean really understand this thing called race on a global scale across time periods has included and necessitated my understanding of the meaning of race since its inception in the English language. And as a result of that, I've done extensive study in early modern Europe. And one thing that I talk about on my podcast is this history of the word race meaning something different in the European context. Before it gets to what would become the United States, race had more to do with nationality. It had to do with lineage, family, class. It was a way for early modern Europeans to create a hierarchy that was called race. And I kind of view what happened in Nazi Germany as doing that similar work and operating within the old framework of what race is. And in the sense that we could think about racism as being global, a lot of the ways in which people are racialized, there are some people who would argue that racialization, when not in the American context, is a discrimination against another group of people based on ethnicity, which includes culture, religion, and all these other things. So in that way, some people would argue that racism is worldwide because human society, we have found constant pernicious ways to oppress and hierarchize. But if you're not taught that history, if you're not taught about the different meanings of the word race, and if you're not taught to look at the framework of race ideology with its uniqueness and how it operates in different countries and in different time periods, then you do fall into the trap that Whoopi Goldberg fell into, which is viewing it as white on white crime, which feels icky even saying it. And I think that the reaction to her error and ignorance, in the sense that she just didn't know, I think the reaction is super ironic and interesting, and something I've been paying very close attention to, because I would argue that the vast majority of people would have thought the same thing until Whoopi became this scapegoat, and because people identify her as woke or left-leaning and all this other stuff, which then means they associate cancel culture and all the things with her, that resulted in a backlash that might have otherwise been different if somebody else was saying it and making the same error. So I've been paying attention to the backlash and kind of shaking my head, constantly, because the irony isn't lost on me. And I think it's unfortunate that she's being used as a sort of example, but how she expressed how she thinks about racism, I would say you get that in primary school. That's how we're taught. You get that through media. I mean, you get that in all the ways at virtually every level. And I feel like it's less common for people to view that as having to do with race, period.